During the Khmer Empire, thousands of temples were built for specific reasons or purposes, such as to dedicate to Hindu deities, Buddhism, or the king's deceased relatives, and many other mysteries hidden behind. Preah Khan is one of the Cambodian mysterious temples that is hardly well known. What does Preah Khan mean? Why was it built? What was this temple used during the Khmer Empire? Who built it? When? Why were some carvings in this temple disfigured? Let Khmer temples and nature reveal all the mysteries of Preah Khan Temple. Preah Khan, which means royal sword or sacred sword, is a Bayon-style temple at Angkor Archaeological Park in Kingdom of Cambodia. Built in the 12th century by the great King Jayavarman VII to dedicate to his father, King Neak II. It is located northeast of Angkor Cham and just west of the Jayatataka Baray, with which it was associated. It was the center of a substantial organization with almost 100,000 officials and servants. Like the nearby Taprom, dedicated to the king's mother, Queen Sri Jayadharmani. Preah Khan has been left largely unrestored, with numerous trees and other vegetation growing along the ruins. An extensive 56 hectares Buddhist complex was built on the site of Jayavarman VII's victory over the invading Chams. The temple served as the nucleus of a group that includes the temple of Poan and the Cham. Located along the 4-kilometer-long Jayatataka Baray, the last of the great reservoir to be built in Angkor. The temple compound was a lake of blood both sides when the Chams, led by king named Jaya Indravarman IV, invaded and controlled Angkor in 1177, but King Jayavarman VII finally defeated the Chams in 1181. The modern name Preah Khan, meaning sacred sword, is derived from the meaning of the original Nagara Jayasri, the city of victory sword. The site may previously have been occupied by the royal palaces of Yasovarman II and Tribhuvanaditya-varman. The temple's foundation stela has provided considerable information about the history and administration of the site. The main image of the Bodhisattva Alokeswara, Jayavarman in the form of the king's father, was dedicated in 1191. 430 other secondary deities also had shrines on the site, each of which received an allotment of food, clothing, perfume, and even mosquito nets. The wealth and treasure of this ruin includes gold, silver, gems, 112,300 pearls, and a cow with gilded horns. High stone stela inscribed on all four sides, now under the security of the Conservation Office, celebrates the gift of 5,324 villages, which were charged with furnishing 10 tons of white rice per day, and state that 97,840 people gravitated around the temple. Preah Khan not only served as the royal administrative office, but also a famous learning center and a religious shrine, Buddhism and Hinduism. We can cross the Sacred Sword Temple from the east to west and vice versa. Here we describe the approach from the east. The causeway covers 200 meters through the gopura of the fourth enclosure, and the first part is lined with boundary stones. Each boundary sandstone decorated with the faces of their square section pillars carry the carvings of a monster with a human torso, the legs, and open wings of Garuda and lion-like face. Niches in the caps of the boundary stones originally had a Buddha image, but these were disfigured in the return to Brahmanism in the second half of the 13th century. Reference to Angkor Kingdom Guidebook. This decoration may indicate the religious education that when Hinduism was replaced by Buddhism as a religion of state in the 12th century, and in the purpose of keeping the nation united between the followers of those two religions. King Jayavarman VII created an idea to use an education of philosophy through temple wall sculptures such as these boundary stones, decorated with Buddha image on the top of the wall, representing the Buddhism, and the image of the opening wings Garuda with lion head on the lower wall, representing Hinduism, supported the Buddhism which officially belonged to the state. The alley of boundary stones is followed by a Naga bridge, similar to those crossing the moats of Angkor Thom. The bodies of two giant multi-headed Nagas on either side of the causeway, supported by rows of Devas on the left and Asuras on the right. Here, however, the relatively isolated location has allowed the heads to be looted. The stance of the giant figures recall the well-known scene of the tuning of the Sea of Milk, same as the 5 gates of Angkor Thom. Note that, in fact, water cannot flow under the bridge on the west and north, which has no passageways. On the east and south, Naga bridges are bas reliefs showing people, but they were not often noticed because you had to climb down the bank to see them. They are best reserved on the south side. Nagara Jayasri lies in 4 enclosures, the outermost of which measures 800 by 700 meters and surrounded by a moat with 40 meters wide. The outer walls on either side of Preah Khan are of laterite and carry magnificent stone sculptures of 72 giant Garudas, which one grasping the tail of a Naga in each hand and holding the Naga's head with the claws, its traditional enemy. Above there is long crenellation like veil that once had images of Buddha but were disfigured. These 5-meter tall stone sculptures are spaced at 50 meters into walls all the way around the 4 enclosures. The east sandstone gupura has 3 entrances, each with a tower, of which the central one, through which Khad could pass, is the largest. Continue west through the causeway, we see the thick jungle from the left and right sides. Walking and enjoying the beauty of the nature towards to the large cruciform terrace with Nagas, balustrades, and lions. And just before you reach it, you can see a sandstone construction called House of Fire on your right. One of the 121 such chapels built by King Jayavarman VII along the main road of the empire. They are specific in the construction aligned east-west with a tower at the west end and 5 windows in the south only and 2 remain doors opening to the west and east. Reference to the inscriptions, it is most probable that they were used in connection with the arcs of the sacred flame, maybe as staging posts on a ritual journey. In addition, 4 deities had shrines in this construction. This house of fire features extremely thick walls and double baluster windows. At the east of the second enclosure, there is a widely open honorable terrace. The gupura through which you enter the laterite walled third enclosure is the most elaborate of all those at Preah Khan. Its 3 widely spaced towers and the small pavilions at either end are connected by galleries supported on this outer side by pillars. 100 meters in overall length, it has 5 entrances and a gallery to your left. Between the central and the southern tower bears 2 giant silk cotton trees. Their trunks at an angle to each other. While extremely beautiful, the trees are causing problems because they are old and likely to fall down, damaging the temples in the process. Unfortunately, the beautiful trees can no longer be seen due to the temple protection reason. The trees have been cut by the Apsara authority. Only the dry look-like elephant trunk roof on the sandstone wall is still there. Cross through the gopura on the side facing inward. The enclosure is gallery walls are solid with false baluster windows. Immediately ahead is a large building without roofs now, containing 4 small courtyards, each surrounded by 24 pillars that would have formed a small gallery. This is the Hall of Dancers. The walls are decorated with apsaras. Buddha images in niches above them were systematically destroyed during the reign of Jayavarman VII. North of the Hall of Dancers is a 2-story structure with round columns. It was a library with closely spaced columns and no trace of a stairway or any means of access to the upper wall. Possibly, it once was a granary. Some sources that this building used to keep the sacred sword, showing the king's power. In front of this 2-story library to the west is a laterite base for a shrine, probably of a later date, having 2 stairways, one from the east and another from the west. Return to the main east-west axis of the temple. On the west side of the Hall of Dancers are 2 libraries as usual with west-facing doorways. The gopura directly is in front of you usually projects east from the gallery of the second enclosure. And from here to the gopura of the inner enclosure is a complicated arrangement of the additional building work. Inside, if you allow your eyes to adjust to the darkness, you can admire above you the extremely well-curved garudas at the corners. On the columns, the small Buddhas originally held here have been transformed into hermits. Stay in this enclosure before continuing to the central tower. Turn right. You can be amazed by a tall tree grown on the temple wall. Continue north and make a slight right through a narrow path. You can see 2 sculptures of the king's wives, Jaya Devi and Indra Devi. Return to the inner gopura, looking west. You can see all the way through the axis of the temple and its succession of doorways. In the western porch of the Gubra, just in front of you, stood the famous stela of Preah Khan, 2 meters tall and 60 centimeters square, with inscriptions on all 4 sides. It was recently removed to the conservancy for safekeeping. Continue west into the inner enclosure. If you look back, you will see the pediment showing Rama returning to Ayodhya. Unlike at any other temple, even Taprom, this courtyard has been the latter additions of so many small buildings, most of them irregularly spaced, that its layout is obscure. The central sanctuary is, as usual, set back towards the west. At its corner is a small sandstone stupa, or a tomb, added around the 16th century. Originally a statue in the likeness of Jayavarman VII's father, Jayavarman IV, stood there. It was probably smashed by Jayavarman VIII. The inner walls here are pierced with small holes, presumed to have been for attaching light bronze plate as a covering. Angkor Kingdom Guidebook Part 2 added that those small holes in the walls of the central sanctuary were used to attach pearls as decorations, and each hole for each pearl. Because the sacred sanctuary was important for the dedication to the king's father. The Khmer professor of archaeology, Dr. Peng Sita, examines that the stupa was symbolized. Number 1. The tabular wall representing the space. Number 2. Nirvana. Number 3. Conical shape representing fire. Number 4. Hanging bell shape representing water. Number 5. The square shape representing earth. Note: the sizes and height of each entrance to the central sanctuary were differently designed. The east entrance is bigger and higher, and the west, north, and south entrances have smaller walkways from door to door with higher and high roofs to the central. Respond to this special architectural design, it is said that the east direction toward the stupa was for the king and the royal families. That's why it was built wider and higher than the other 3 directions, which used by the pilgrims and ordinary people who needed to bow when entering to the central sanctuary. In order to show respects to the king's father, the Bodhisattva Alokeswara explains Angkor Kingdom Guidebook. Similarly, the outside of the central sanctuary was not well finished, since it would also have been covered with bronze. Indeed, the inscription mentioned that more than 1,500 tons were used at this temple. There are 4 doorways at the cardinal points, which give an unusually spacious and open feeling to the sanctuary, with long views along each axis. 3 small rectangular temples surround the Buddha temple. The north is dedicated to Shiva, The south is to the deceased kings and queens. The west to Vishnu. Making a side trip to visit the North Temple from here. The North Temple at the West Pediment shows Vishnu reclining and his wife Lakshmi giving a massage gesture on a Naga named Ananta. Return to the central sanctuary and continue west. In the vestibule immediately to the west of the sanctuary is a linga and its yoni pedestal, placed here probably in the second half of the 13th century. Look west at the ground behind the pedestal. You can see a lintel curving a scene when Hanuman met Sita in Lanka in Ramayana. This sculpture indicates that Hanuman meeting with Sita in the Lanka island. Hanuman showed her the Rama's ring to identify him as a representative of Rama. On other side, filling the northwest and southwest corners of the inner enclosure are more small chapels similar to those in the eastern courtyard. As you leave the Gopura second, you enter the small Vishnu temple, identical to the other two except that the opening is, of course, to the west, and the library is accordingly in the different position. In its eastern entrance is a long pedestal with holes for 3 statues. In the inscription on the door jams states that these were Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita, and a spout for carrying off lustre water. The west pediment shows Krishna raising Mount Govardhana. This carving indicates that Krishna protected the villagers and cowherds from being threatened by the rain and lightning of Indriya. A few steps beyond this small enclosure is Gopuras, the third west, with its pillared walls and house walls very similar in style to the galleries at Angkor Wat. Its pediment shows a game of chess in progress on a boat. The pediment facing out across a large cruciform terrace shows fighting during the battle of Lanka from the Ramayana. Two colossal headless Dwarapalas, one hand holding a sword and another touching the chest with an open palm, showing respect and welcoming the guests, guard strongly at the west entrance. The Road West Living Sacred Sword recapitulates the eastern approach, although it is a similar shortcut due to the offsetting of the temple to the west pass through Gopura IV and the laterite wall with giant garudas, then across the moat by means of a causeway flanked with gods and asuras holding the bodies of 2 giant nagas. And finally along the walkway between the rows of boundary stones to the road. Since 1991, the site has been maintained by the World Monuments Fund. It has continued the cautious approach to restoration, believing that to go further would involve too much guesswork and prefers to respect the ruined nature of the temple. One of its former employees has said, "We are basically running a glorified maintenance program. We are not prepared to falsify history." It has therefore limited itself primarily to stabilization work on the fourth eastern gopura, the House of Fire, and the Hall of Dancers. Visiting Preah Khan offers a glimpse into the grandeur of the Khmer Empire and its enduring spiritual significance.